All right, hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's artist talk with Ed Pontes. My name is Lily Weitzman, and I'm a programming librarian here at the Newton Free Library. And I'm so pleased to be hosting Ed's exhibit, Through the Shade of a Tree, at the library this month. I'm sure many of you saw it when you came in, but if you didn't, please take the opportunity to take a look at it after the program. So at this talk, Ed will share the trials, inspirations, and development of his delimited drip painting technique and show us the optical effects that you can see in his work. And without further ado, I'm so pleased to welcome Ed Pontes.
When I was 15, this is going to take some getting used to. When I was 15, I walked up to my dad. He was sitting in his recliner, and I said, "Dad, I think I want to be a mechanic like you." And I went to a vocational school, and in the freshman year you went through the various focuses, various vocations, career pursuits, and you had to decide at the end. So I walk up to him and say this to him, and I was expecting to hear some encouraging words, oh yes, maybe some tips. But instead he said, "Why do you want to be a mechanic like me? You know, you can draw. You can just sit in an office all day and draw." And from that point, I knew I wanted to be an artist, a professional artist. So throughout my college and high school years, I would try to imagine what it would be like to have my first one-man show. I would dream of that day. I never knew it would take this long. But it did. The other thing I didn't realize is I didn't know it would involve an artist talk. And that added a whole nother layer. As my wife will attest, and some of my close friends, I don't like to talk about art. As they will also attest, I do like to talk about art. It's a paradox, I know, but you'll understand what I mean by that soon enough. So, I struggled with how I was going to structure this so it didn't go all over the place. And I decided that the best way to do it would be to take a really broad, to describe to you my view broadly of art, and then keep putting art inside a box, like nesting dolls, until we talk only about this. This is the little tiny doll in the middle of the nesting dolls. So I'm going to start big and try to drive through this to give lots of time at the end for questions. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the big picture art.
You're on a timer.
I am on a timer. So, art is a process of common sense. This is my view. I'm sure it's shared by others to some degree. It's the original process. It's a process that we have had from the very beginning and which added to our society. It took us from primates to this crazy technological world. And it did that through a very simple means. And those the means involve two very simple aspects. First, you need people. Art is all about people. You need a group of people. And within that group of people, you need the second element, which is suggesters of art. Those people who step outside of the community. And these communities can be any size. They could be a tribe, a state, an internet. You step outside and you offer a suggestion of art. It has limitless potential. There are no rules. You just offer your suggestion. And the people in the community receive that suggestion and have just two things to do. Number one, they can just ignore it and move on with their life. They have a community. They don't need anything extra necessarily at this time. They don't need an extra tool necessarily, or an extra piece of artwork or spiritual item, so they can ignore it. Or they can engage with it. And they could choose to engage with it. And the way they come about these suggestions is that the artist, or the suggester of art, the one who's giving the hint of art, the inkling, the doohickey, the thingamajig, whatever the thing they're offering, can suggest it directly, like I'm doing here. And they could say, what do you think of this? Is this something, or is this nothing? I don't know. Check it out. And the community can get a direct interaction with that item. Or the artist can build it and put it over there, and just wait for their group to stumble on it. Graffiti artists do this all the time. People go to sleep, they wake up, and oh my God, what's that painted on the wall the next morning? But again, this has been done since the beginning of time. Humans have been leaving stuff all over the place for other people to find, and give them the potential to engage with it. The third way is the person can make the object or the thing and decide otherwise, or else show it to a few people and then decide, oh no, and toss the thing. They could throw it in a volcano or in the sea, or bury it somewhere, and time will forget about it. Until someday down the future, a new group digs it up, and then it becomes meaningful. So art has this way of finding meaning in groups of people. And the function is not for the suggester of art, the artist, to give meaning to the item. It's the community. You guys are the heroes all the time. And when I am in one of those seats and there's a different artist up here, I get to be the hero of art by engaging with it. The suggester can't do that. And that's what I mean when I say I don't like to talk about art. I don't like to tell people the meaning of my work, because I'm making it in a visual way for you to find the meaning in it, to engage with each other, to hate it or love it. It's art, so there is no limits. Now this is a real epistemological, like big philosophical, big picture thing that really has no place in this discussion, but I did want to start there so that not just that I have an open mind when it comes to art, but most importantly, if you leave here with any idea, I want you to remember that it is the community that are the heroes of art. That too many people get discouraged with engaging with art because of all the pollution out there, as far as the hierarchical nonsense that tries to tell you what art is. Art is a process that you're supposed to be involved with, and so that is the main reason I I wanted to start there. The next place I want to go is visual arts in general. And that is that, again, art on the visual realm, in a very specific box. It's the smaller nesting doll than up here. It's just art that you can look at. You know, the only rule there is you have to look at it. The art can't be a bird call because you can't see a bird call. And if it was a person doing a bird call in front of you, yes, it's visual, but it's also performance. So that's in a bigger box. Visual art is just about how something looks, like, you know, being able to see something with your eyes, experiencing something with your eyes. And so this is the realm that I live in. I communicate the way your eyes work, and I'm going to show you how I do that in these paintings. Now, the visual art has two main components that we have to address. One is media. Just like art has infinite possibilities, the media has infinite possibilities. You have so many different types of media. An artist can choose a media every hour, on the hour, every week, for the rest of their life, and not even scratch the surface of which media you could use. It's an infinite array. So the artist's first job is to choose a media. I chose polymers and polymer fabric and panel and eyedroppers and you get the idea. Wood, nails. And I limited myself in that way so that I could communicate visually within those parameters. The other thing you have to decide as a visual artist has to do with the type of, or the degree of illusion. So, to give an example, charcoal and paper. That's a very easy medium. Two things. You could choose to do maximum illusion, a giant billboard of a person's face. And this face has every pore and every wrinkle and every single, you know, nuance, so it looks completely real. And you could also choose the other end of the spectrum, which is you could take a piece of paper, put it on the floor, and put the charcoal on top of the paper and say, that's my suggestion of art. And this is something that sounds crazy, but artists do this all the time. Recently, in 2019, at Art Basel, or Basel, however you say it, a gentleman by the name of Maurizio Catalan took a strip of duct tape, 3-cent strip of duct tape, and a 59-cent banana or whatever from the grocery store. He taped it to the wall. And he said, there's my suggestion of art. Well, he didn't say that, but you get the idea. So this medium is banana and tape, just like mine down there, the charcoal and the paper. That's all it is, and it's not the first time that was done, because over 100 years ago, Marcel Duchamp went into a plumbing supply store and paid $5, or whatever Frank's conversion was back then, and he put it in a gallery with a fake name on it, and he said, that's my suggestion of art. And this same idea has been done over and over and over and over again. A glass of water, a tin can, an unmade bed. So many artists have done this idea because during the modernist movement and the postmodernist movement, the whole idea was to wipe the slate clean and say, no, art has no rules. Get rid of them. Because we've spent way too much history with these authority figures subjugating artists and employing artists to do their bidding, that the process of art got distorted over the years, and we finally figured out it's time to get it back to its original nature. And that's people like me in society are doing that. They're not concerned with rules. They want to do their own thing. If they make money at it, great. If they don't, well, that's the way the process works. If the community can't find meaning in the object, I can't force that meaning. Only you can create the meaning in any artwork. So, what have I done? Let me make sure I said everything. What have I done in my artistic life to come to this result? That brings us to the smaller little nesting doll, delimited drip. So, delimited drip painting began during a feverish experimental phase. My wife and I, for a long time, we've had this kind of a pact, I guess, where I wanted to be an artist, but we needed to also buy a house, have a family, all this other stuff. So we agreed to sock away as much money as possible to allow me to be a full-time artist by the time I turned 40. Well, that didn't work out exactly like that, but by the time I was like 50 or so, I was able to finally start my full-time art career. And when I did that, I was feverishly experimenting. I was doing stencil work, I was dripping, I was splashing, I was doing so many different things, trying to figure out what is going to be my visual language. And one day, I was painting and I had drips going down like this, and I swiped a brush across the drips like this, and I looked back and I was like, that's a bummer. I really wish that paint wasn't covering up those drips. It would look much better. So I thought, what if I dripped this way, sideways? So I could just turn the canvas and drip it this way. Now I got drips going in two different directions. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because now I can see the colors underneath interrupted slightly by the colors above, and now those colors are mixing. And that was when I started to get obsessed with this layering thing of drips. So now, I'll give you a little demo. So now, what I do is if I want to make a light green, I just tilt the canvas this way, let's say, and drip this way. If I want to make a different color, I add colors on top. So to understand what my activities are in this process, I've reduced what I do down to 3 things. I can pick the color, I can pick the placement of where the drip starts, and I can pick the orientation of the canvas. So in this case, I'm picking this orientation, and I'm dripping like that. Now let's say I want a brighter green, then I might lay down a yellow first, and then the green will appear brighter. And now let's say I want to have a cooler green, like a aqua color, then I'll put blue over that. And now it's aqua. If I don't like that, if I don't think that that full aqua will work, no problem. I just have to remember when I'm dripping this drip, you do the blue first, and then the green can come second. And when I'm doing this, the time that's elapsing is tremendous. So I have to think about these things way ahead of time. Because for instance, what if I wanted this to be a deep pine forest, like I was doing a deep pine forest, and then I have to take the complement of red, lay that one down first, then 3 weeks later, pick up that canvas again after the paint has time to cure. And then I could put the yellow, and then I wait 3-4 weeks later, so the paint has time to cure. And this is layer after layer after layer over time. There's 6 or 7 layers in each painting. There's approximately 45 to 50,000 drips on this canvas. I come downstairs and I go drip, 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 drip. And then I come back the next day and I do that. Drip, 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 drip. So that's how it's done. Now, why do I call it delimited drip? Because I can put a border. The border is made by way of where I start the drip. The drips travel however way they might, because I'm at the mercy of gravity. I call this a meditation of control and surrender, because I can control where the drip goes, but then I have to surrender to where it ends up. I have no choice. But I can make a perfect circle, and I'll show you how I do that. I can put drips on the top, they'll go this way. Drips on the bottom, go this way. Drips this way, go this way, and then all the eight different positions, and I will have a perfectly round circle. And that's how this thing works. So, in order to accomplish multiple paintings at once, I have this sort of what I call a dance. I have 4 paintings going at once. I put this painting up, I drip on this painting, and then I have an empty table here and 3 paintings down there. I flip, I'll use this because it makes it easier. So I take the canvas off, I flip it this way, upside down, to stop the drips and send them in the other direction. Then I hold the canvas flat like this to make sure the drips don't keep dripping. Then I put it on the table and let it stay there and cure. Now, I go to the end, way over there, grab the last painting, bring that one, put this one up, decide which angle I'm going to do it. Maybe I'm doing purple in this direction. I go like this, I drip on there. But before I do that, I have to shift all the paintings down, 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 so that I have a space to put that one. And I do this round robin, kind of endless, like, what is it called? Henry Ford.
Assembly line.
Assembly line, thank you. So I do this assembly line thing, concept. So I decided to try to solve that problem with this machine. I'm trying to get a grant or a wealthy patron, or sell a painting for one of the big paintings, so I can build this thing. This is made out of, it's basically paper mache. It's made out of cardboard and chopsticks and things like that. So anyway, so this has a locking mechanism where it can lock on the vertical. So oh shit. I forgot the spindle. It's in the car. Okay, so there's a spindle that goes in here. And when the painting's on here, this lever lifts the spindle, and then I can turn the spindle. The spindle will be attached to the back of the painting. I turn the spindle to the correct angle that I want, drop it down, and it drops right on that pin. And then I can, now that the canvas is positioned and locked on a diagonal, let's say, I can drop it, drip, 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 pick it up, and instead of lifting it and all that nonsense, I go like this to send the drip in the other direction, and I go like this and lock it into place. So this is going to be made out of 1/8" steel, and I'm going to have 3 or 4 of these lined up in a row, so that I can put the spindle on the back of this. I'm bummed that I left it in the car. I put the spindle on the back of this, and I will have 8 paintings, 4 against the wall, 4 on 4 of these things, and I just go from one easel to the next, to the next, to the next, and never even touch it, leaving the painting right on there. Do the entire layer without taking it off once. And these handy things will save my back as I age miserably. So that's my next big project, to try to advance this technique. Now, last but not least, before we do questions, I want to talk about the visual effects leading into this painting right here. And we'll talk about this in particular. So the effects that I'm trying to accomplish. All right. So the whole gravity thing is central to this process. And here's how it is. Here's how I view it. If most people who do drip paintings, the drip comes from the top to the bottom. That's how it is. Because we perceive this way, this is how people work, this is how that gravity comes from up here and it goes down here. But the thing is, there's a guy in Sydney, Australia, where his gravity goes down there and comes up toward me. And then there's a guy over there where get what I'm saying? So every direction. Now start to think about how I paint in every direction. I'm trying to capture gravity and the potential energy of gravity through the use of the correct viscosity and surface tension of these panels, which I prepare to receive those drips as best as possible, that they go in all the directions like the world. Because the world the gravity holds all the life. We're one life. We're one continuous life. It's locked in as gravity pushes us all to the ground. And this, to me, is extremely meaningful about what I'm doing. Because I get to show you the kinetic energy that was captured by gravity drawing its lines in all these different directions. Now, when I talked to you about that the artist has to decide the level of illusion and the medium, I told you the medium, but I didn't tell you the level of illusion. My level of illusion, I'm trying to strike a balance between, you being able to see the gravity, the kinetic energy that I'm capturing. I'm imprinting the kinetic energy into the surface. Try to see it in all of its directions, and it vibrates and it has a life to it. But I want to do it in a way that you're slowly step through the various visual processes of your neuropsychological visual system. So when you're far away 50 feet, I want you to experience optical mixing, which is what the pointillists did back in the day. You know, Paul Signac and George Seurat, you know, they were putting raw color and letting your eye mix it from a distance. And then as you get closer, you say, oh, son of a gun. It's not like a regular painting. It's got all these little different colored dots. That's what makes it up. So I'm trying to do that from 50 feet, where you start and you say, oh, there's a painting of a bird. And then as you're walking closer, it's like, no, that's strange. Something is off. You know, there's different little colors starting to come through. And this is the thing that the Divisionists did back in that day. They did this sort of, you know, they revealed that phenomenon to you. And so I want you to go from the optical mixing and then to this place where you're saying, what is that? Is it digital? Is it like a, you know, it looks pixelated. And then you're experiencing that optical mixing into the simultaneous contrast where your eye is like picking and choosing colors and making new combinations of colors as you go. Okay. And then as you step a little closer, now you see the gravity thing I talked about, where he's captured this dynamic energy from the gravity, from all different directions. And then when you get super close, I want you to experience stereopsis, which is your bifocal vision, because the surface is layered in 7 layers where the drips are actually casting shadows on each other. And so I have to prepare the surface every layer for 7 times over the course of 12 to 18 months each painting takes. Preparing these layers and mixing the color, remembering, okay, I gotta go from this orange color to this yellow color, so first I gotta put that color in. And you have to keep going from layer to layer, mixing. So those are the things I want you to experience. Far away, regular painting. Closer, optical mixing. Closer, simultaneous contrast. Closer, weird gravity jagged thing, like woo! And then even closer, you put your nose on it and it's like, oh, stereopsis. So what I want you to do when you're experiencing one of my paintings, I want you to get a broad breadth of the neuropsychological visual system, the way it works, the different mechanisms, so that you can feel your eyes working in so many ways, and you can experience the gravity and so forth. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is tell you the name of this painting and what it's all about. I painted it so that the trees are below your eye line, and the bird is above the bird's eyes are above your eye line. So you're in the middle, and the bird's head is above the clouds, but your head is not above the clouds. And I named this thing, the Dharma Bum Overlooks Nothing. And the reason why I named it that is, for one, it's a ambiguous statement. It overlooks nothing. First of all, is the bird the Dharma Bum? Or is someone else the Dharma Bum? We don't know. But if it's the bird, then is he overlooking nothingness? Or is he never missing a trick? And you get to decide, because guess what? I don't decide that stuff. I don't decide the meaning. You do. So you get to decide what that means. You get to decide the position of yourself, what that means. The other thing I did was I tipped my hat to, Eastern philosophy, the Dharma Bum, as well as Jack Kerouac, of course, and his exploration of Eastern philosophy was white Christian guy and his drinking buddies in the middle of the woods, going on camping trips and trying to figure out, the wonders of Buddhism. And that's not what the painting's about, but I tipped my hat to him, to that idea of this, looking at the world differently through multiple angles. And part of that is in the composition. I do this sort of back and forth, almost like a Chinese character. In my mind, I was thinking about when I was in college and I saw a Zen master painter do letters down a large, long piece of paper. And so I wanted to have this sort of to it. And lastly, I wanted to point out that, as you can see, I'm employing the drips to my advantage. The trees are close, so that the last drips are at this kind of oblique angles. And then the sky at the bottom is furthest away, so most of the drips you're seeing are like this. And then as the sky smooths out, and then the clouds, you're seeing a lot of this business, because you want the last drips to follow, Albrecht Dürer, who did all the, in the Renaissance, the hatching marks, and he figured all that stuff out. Well, I'm borrowing from him and making sure that these feathers go this way, these feathers go this way, these feathers go this way. The clouds go all ways because they're supposed to be puffy, and all this business. You get the idea. So I have to do them in a particular order. Okay. Questions?
I have 4.
You have 4, you can have 1.
Pick your best.
Oh, can I have 2?
Maybe.
Okay.
The first one's
We gotta follow up.
Okay. When you were explaining, either I lost focus or you didn't finish
I might not have finished.
about delimited drip and why you named it.
Okay. Delimited because when I was drawing that circle and said I could do a perfect circle, I delimit the edge. I create a border, just like delimiting a piece of property. I create a border by where I stop the drip, and the release, the surrender is the gravity drawing it, the capturing of the kinetic energy through the traces. So, no problem.
Get another one?
Yeah, sure.
In regard to your process, when you're in the middle of it with, the drips and then moving the position and the layering the colors, and if you get a situation that you consider, oh, I didn't want that, how do you fix it with this process, or what do you do with a thing like that?
I'll act it out. Drip, drip, drip. Okay, I can deal with that. And then usually I will wait until the next layer, and one of the first things I tackle is positioning it over there and putting the next layer drip right over it. So I solve it, and then if it's the last layer, that's trickier. Sometimes I have to wipe it out. I try not to wipe any of them out, because gravity is telling me it wants to go along. So I try to let it go along. Doesn't say I can't cover it up later, but gravity's the boss. And I have to give in to that. That's the whole point of it. I have to let gravity make that crazy, jaggy thing that it wants to do, because every drop has a different weight, and every pigment has a different weight. If you do titanium, it's titanium dioxide, it's heavy. And so it has a tendency of sinking in the suspension medium. Whereas you do like a benzo or a quinacridone or a phthalocyanine, you know, those are in the medium range, or some of them are super light. So depending on the chemicals, some are biological chemicals, some are synthetic chemicals, some are metals, and so they all have different weights. So not only do the drips behave differently, some will run faster, and I have to try to make those adjustments by adding a thicker medium or subtracting water by leaving the jar open for a while, for a couple days, and let some of the water evaporate out. So I have to always be testing it. And I've gotten to the point where I just dip my little plunger in there and I look at how it drips, and I know what the viscosity is. And I say, oh, I'm gonna have to add some water to that one, and I adjust it as I go.
It's more of an observation. I'm not, this is going to be a messy question or a comment, so I don't know how to explain it, but your relationship to the canvas, in my estimation, is really unique. Meaning, most artists, you know, it's up on the wall or whatever, you're just painting. And the thing isn't moving.
Yeah.
And it's all static.
Yeah.
You have this deep connection with that physical
Yes.
element of the canvas.
Yes, and I'm trying to make it a little less physical without losing the connection. I accept donations.
So you work fairly large.
Yes.
And I was wondering, do you work directly large, or do you make smaller sketches first?
That's an excellent question. And what I do is I spend most of my time either in the computer or cutting things together, like this part. All of these pieces come from different sources, and I manufacture the scene ahead of time on a piece of paper about that big. And so then I know the rough thing, and then I rough it in, but you know, the drips go where they go. So I don't have to rough it in accurately, because when I drew this, the edge of the wing was maybe over here. But too many drips went this way, so I had to keep shifting this way and that way, up and down, to adjust every layer I do. Because I'm making an abstraction of a bird foot. I'm not making a bird foot. I'm saying, if I were to deform that bird foot into the most simple elements, you know, what shapes would it make so that in the end, if someone's far away, they'll think it's a bird foot. And so that's, yes, sir.
What did you do as an artist to get from exploring your craft, perfecting your craft, and did you work alone? Did you work with other societies or groups? And once you got into the mode, the media, the message, you know, and the illusion that you wanted, how do you advise artists that are just starting to go through the process to where you're comfortable with your media, your art, the message? What did you do to get from the beginning to being a mature producer?
I love that question. So, I would say, first of all, I work alone. I'm a loner when it comes to this stuff. I would say it goes something like this. It's sort of a frenzied state of experimentation in the beginning. And then the art slowly points you into a direction, and you say, okay, I'll go that way. And then something else happens, okay, I think I gotta go that way now. And you sort of, the art tells you, oh, I gotta tell you a story. When I was in college, I love the abstract expressionists, and this is directly to your question. I love the abstract expression. I wanted to be an abstract expressionist. De Kooning and Rauschenberg and Helen Frankenthaler and Basquiat was just blowing up at the time, and I wanted to be the next Basquiat. Me and my friend buddy were in an art history class, and we were looking at the Divisionists, Signac and Paul Signac and George Seurat, and me, the abstract expressionist dude, leans over to my buddy and says, "If I ever paint like that, just shoot me." So I did not want to be here. Trust me on that. This is the furthest place I want to be. But the art tells you, and it tells you because you have to be honest with yourself. You have to say, I don't want to say wrong with me, but what are my weird things that I own? And like, one of my weird things was that when I was a very young boy, I used art to survive. Like, my notebooks were covered in drawings, and like every book was covered, and all I did was draw, and I always had my head down drawing because I wasn't good at anything else. I wasn't a good student. I wasn't any of that. I was very much neurodivergent. I had probably dyslexia and dyscalculia, and certainly ADHD. And I know these things because when I was an adult, I did end up getting tested. But art helped me to survive. So when I got into high school, my high school teacher said, "Oh yeah, you've got to continue your drawing. You've got to go to this school that focuses in drawing, and as soon as you turn 18, you've got to sign up for figure drawing classes. You have to be 18 to do figure drawing classes." So as soon as I did, we did. Me and a couple of my buddies. And so I was obsessed with this whole drawing and getting it right. And so I relied on that, my wrist. I valued my ability so much. And so I have to face that and be honest and tell you. And I had to tell myself, that was your crutch, buddy. And it's still your crutch. So you sure you want to make real art? Because if you want to make real art, you got to face that crutch. And so that guided me. And so all of these stages, you've got to know yourself. You want to interact honestly with your work and really be truly honest with yourself. Then it will slowly guide you. Any other questions? Yes?
You ever just pick up an iPad and try to do this to save yourself 18 months? Because
I will take that under advisement.
I don't have the patience to work on something for 12 or 18 months when I'm creating. If I don't finish something in a week or a few weeks, it bothers me. How do you have the patience to do
That's
that?
good. Adding on to this gentleman's question perfectly, because how do I do it? Because one of my, call it quirks, is that I'm obsessed with process. People who know me are laughing.
The chuckle was from his wife.
The more steps, the better.
So I just when I cut up a pepper, I skin it first on the stove, and then I cut it in perfect quarters, and then I shave off every vein so it's perfect. And only then do I slice it into bits,
He's a very good.
and I save some whole in the fridge that I'm not going to use because I want it fresh sliced later, and then I'll use just this exactly. And I'll even trim off any parts that don't look pretty. So that's cutting and pepper.
So that's like OCD.
Yes. If you need to put a name on it.
Some people call it superpower. It's okay, it's just a label.
Yeah.
But so, how do you survive 18 months till you see this?
It's torture. I want to tell you, it is torture. Because I want so badly, okay. I started this bird in 2020. That's 6 years ago. And I finished this bird yesterday. Hopefully it's a good bird.
I think what fascinates me, not only your process, but how do you know that you're going to end up with the colors that you end up with? You know, I mean,
Also excellent.
when you mix paints, you're like, oh, okay, I want a green, and you can mix it and be like, oh, I need a little more yellow, but you don't have that opportunity with this.
That's right.
So you have to analyze what colors make up each color in order to have the individual colors mix to the color in your eye that's the part, like, how do you know that?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And I'm going to answer it with another cool story. When I was in college, one of my professors, I guess they decided to torture us. And he came into class with a photo and a negative, and he said, he had a bowl of fruit in the middle of the thing. And we're all going to paint this fruit. I'm like, okay, we're going to paint a still life today. And he said, I don't want you to paint that still life. I want you to paint it like this negative. I want you to paint it so that if I took a picture of your thing, your painting, it would look like the apples in the negative, not the final. And so I'm like, oh God, that's something. So now, picture how this gets done. So you have the apple, it's dark purpley red on the bottom, goes up to a medium red, then at the top it's an orange yellow, and then there's a highlight of like a aqua white right on the top. So then I have to go, okay, it's purple, red, so it's gonna be, a yellowish green. And it can't be dark, it has to be a light yellowish green. And then that goes into a green because it's red, a medium tone. And then that goes into a darker bluish, what did I say, yellow? Bluish purple. And then you go to the highlight, and instead of the highlight being a white with just a hint of aqua in it, it's the darkest, blackest brown you can make. And so it was this mind game that you had to go through. And so this became very handy. Eventually, I was so glad to be done with that, but it got me so tuned in to, that. So I treat this the same way. And to fully answer your question, you said, how do I know which color? I don't exactly, but it's the same as how do I know that this is going to look like a bird in the end? I have to say, well, I have to treat this abstractly, and that bird foot has to be this kind of mash of drips, and hope none of them go too long or screw me up. And it'll be close enough to a bird foot. And the color's the same way. I know this is going to be this color. And then on the last layer, I adjust it. I go primary color first. The layers in primary color. Then secondary and primary, second. The layers in secondary, second. And then at the last layer, I treat myself to some tertiary colors. And those that kick it just so, just enough. And that's exactly how I do color.
So, I see one question here, let's have this be the last question and I'll do a quick wrap.
Okay.
This is a memory that goes back to about 2003, Ed, when I met you. And I was struck with the way you carried color.
Carried what?
Carried color. You knew the color in mind. And it reminded, the closest I could get to it, my brother-in-law, who's a musicologist, who moved away from me at a concert because my breathing was wrong. The sensitivity, yours was color, his was, to sound.
Yeah.
And also, it's been you all along, right? I can't
Yeah, neurodivergence.
For the win.
It cripples you in school, but you gotta come up with strategies. And mine was a visual memory.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you embodied it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you so much, everybody.